Okay, so hi everybody, and it's amazing to see such a massive crowd today. So it seems like the whole of Plymouth has turned out. So as Tara says, I'm Olivia Heron, one of the curators at the Whitworth, and John Lyons' Carnivalesque opened at the Whitworth in May 2024, and now we're really pleased that it's touring to in Plymouth. And I'm here, lucky enough today to be here with the wonderful John Lyons himself. So our tour today will give you a sort of overview of the exhibition, and you'll be able to hear directly from John his artistic sort of thoughts and spirit. So you can share that with everyone who visits the box in the next few months. So I'll just introduce John a little first. So John was born in Trinidad in the Caribbean in 1933, and he came to the UK in 1959. In 1959 to study art at Goldsmiths College in London. So he was there for 4 years, and then he went to Newcastle to train as an art teacher between 1964 and 1965 before moving to Manchester in 1967. So John lived and worked in Manchester for around 30 years, working as an art teacher and lecturer and creative writing tutor as well. So all the time he was honing his practice as a painter and poet. So John is an amazing painter, poet and art educator. And he's exhibited in numerous exhibitions across the UK and also internationally since 1979. He's appeared in a number of major important exhibitions over the years. He's got, I think, 8 published poetry collections, solo poetry collections, and a cookbook as well, which I've heard you can buy in the box shop. In 2003, he won the Windrush Arts Achiever Award. So he's a very decorated artist, poet, and creative, and has spent a lot of time nurturing others in their creative journey and contributing to the art scene in the UK. So this is why it's really important. This is his first major retrospective, and it's very important because it recognises his long and distinguished career. And a lot of the works in here are going on display sometimes for the first time in public or for the first time in decades. So it's really exciting. And we have published a catalogue as well to go alongside it, fully illustrated. John's works were recently photographed last year, so we were lucky enough to use these beautiful photographs in there, and there's new essays from John and a number of other people, and a selection of John's poems which speak to themes of Carnivalesque. So in the exhibition, it covers from shows paintings, drawings, prints, woodcuts, and also poems done from 1964 to 2024. And it was really important for us to show John's poems alongside his artwork because although John thinks of them as parallel practices, they kind of weave around each other in a really beautiful way, exploring similar themes. So yes. Oh, I was going to say a bit more about John's bio. So after Manchester, John and his partner Jean moved to Hebden Bridge, where they set up this amazing community arts organisation called Hourglass Studio Gallery. And there it was a vibrant hub for arts in the town in West Yorkshire. There was art classes, there was theatre performances, there was open mics. There were all sorts of community activities, exhibitions by other artists. So John's been tirelessly dedicated to supporting others. So the first work in the exhibition is called The Counsellor, and you can see it's a self-portrait of John with an enigmatic owl or jumbie bird in the background. So John, do you want to dive into that?
Yes, before I say that, I have to make a statement and say I'm very awe-inspired by the crowd you hear. And it continues to be awe-inspiring for me because when I first saw the exhibition at Whitworth, people thought, what's wrong with you, John? Because they could see how amazed I felt. And I said, well, it's just want to do more, and I can't recognize what I've done. So what I want to say, in fact, to start with the counsellor, right? I mean, it's sort of that bird there in Trinidad is regarded as dark and so on. And it actually, but I think as well, it's liminal. It's between two worlds. It has that ability to move between two worlds. And I think, oh, that's a good thing, because in fact, that's what life is all about. You know, we got the light and we got the darkness. So I got fond of the owls. If you come to my house, you'll see owls everywhere. In pictures, in little, you know, things. So that's why and this is very important for me, actually, because he's on my shoulder. And he's there, whispering. And because I work by intuition, right, all the time, I have no idea where I'm going most of the time, you know. But I have the skill to begin with, and that was just the means that I needed to use. But apart from that, it was just an adventure and a journey of discovery. And what I want to say, before I move on, as you see, I want to say that I've said this before to other people. When they start heaping a lot of praises on me, I say, hold on a minute. While I was doing this, these works are in my studio. I'm doing it. But when they're on the walls for the public, they're yours, because you're engaging with it. Whether you like, as you engage socially with people, some people you like, some people you don't like. Well, there you are. You engage with the exhibition. It's your exhibition. As you engage with the work, right? And it'd be quite nice to hear what some of you think about it, you know. But that's how I think about works on the walls for me. You know, I mean, this is part of my journey, and also the way it was put here, beautifully hung, is a condensation. You know, I was telling Olivia, when you make a good stew, you know, you reduce it, you know, to get a taste to the flavor. This is what's happened to this exhibition. It was very good in Whitworth, but I saw another view of it here, you know. So thank you very much for coming and ask me questions. And Olivia's here as my crutch.
We support each other.
We support each other. We work very well together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we're really pleased to bring this exhibition to the box, and yeah, thank you for having us. So the exhibition's organised into three main sections. So the first is called Carnivalesque, and this dives into John's sort of abiding theme across his art practice. So John was born and brought up in Trinidad and Tobago, and in Trinidad the carnival is a kind of anchor in the yearly calendar, and the streets come alive with dancing, music, revellers in costumes, and people are getting ready all year for this amazing event. So John, as a child, was really captivated by this and kind of fascinated and excited, but also slightly scared in equal measure. There's all these kind of fantastical costumes and scary beasts and devils marauding through the streets. So John talks about sort of hiding behind his mother's legs as the masquerade bands are passing in the street.
What's that?
And this has had a sort of transformational impact really on John's psyche and artistic intentions. So the first room, we just dive into this theme, and the works brought together in this first section range across the decades from 1986 until 2023. So John is a very active artist, is still making work. Today, there's, I don't think there's anything that can really stop you in your creative journey.
I have to go on.
So in this section...
I don't want to stop.
Well, exactly, it's impossible to stop because it's a way of life.
No, it's a way of life, it's a way of being for me.
A way of being, yes, exactly.
It's my vocation, not a profession.
So in this section, let's move in, shall we move into the main body of Carnivalesque? So in this section, you really get a sense of the kind of activity, the vibrancy, and the kind of enigma of carnival. So, John, do you want to unpack a little more about your interest in carnival and some of the kind of the different sides of it and the histories?
Yes. Yeah, because in fact, the carnival, in Europe and other places, it's a great thing because people say, oh, we're having fun, you know. They dance and, dance and music and all that. That's very good. But I consider it sort of cathartic type of ritualistic thing because it goes back into history. We're back into slavery and how people, and it started with the slaves burning the cane. They call it camboulé, right? Camboulé, canbrûlé in French. And so on. That's how it came about. So for me, it's only later on, of course, I didn't think like that. When I was a little child hanging behind my mum's skirt and thinking, and wondering what's that, and being scared. But as you get older and you begin to understand what it's all about, Carnival, in fact, it started somewhere in Africa to begin with, called a masquerade. And I was talking to the taxi driver who brought me down here. He was a Nigerian. So it was quite a good chance for me to sort of brush up a little bit on how I think and pass it on to him. And he said, oh, yes, it began and I think it went from Egypt into the continent, Italy, Spain, France, and then to the Caribbean islands, Trinidad particularly, a chap called Yves Saint Laurent. He brought his retinue, all his slaves and all the people, because he loved Trinidad. It's very near to Venezuela, and it's rich, wealthy in its resources, it has oil and all the rest of it. So it was very, very attractive, and he brought them there. So what happened, in fact, I can remember a culture that is thoroughly mixed. Let me say, I got all sorts of blood in me, from my grandparents and so on. And we have the Chinese, we got the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the French. We're all there, the Africans. And so therefore it's a very rich culture. And I didn't know all this until you grew up and begin to understand. So it's sort of richness. It gives you a rich sense of who you are. And that is what helped me here in '59 to go back to where I came from, when I was very low, very depressed because of, the situation. I wouldn't go into that. But you know what it was like here, '59, rejected. But I had very people who helped me a great deal, who belonged here. So it gave me another perspective. So we'll talk a little more about that as we go along. I try to express all that as I can in how I paint and in my poetry as well. Because I consider both of them together. I don't think they're separate. One is a linguistic, syntax, and the other one is a visual one. And they work together, And some of the people I like people like Chagall and others, they love poets, and some of them, even Picasso tried to sound poetry as well. But not for me to imitate them, not to imitate what they did, but also get behind what they've done and find out what made them who they were as painters. See, and that gave me courage. That's why I'm here now, standing. Got to that stage where I was very, very low, very depressed. But going back to my culture and going back to my family, because they were very, very respected. See, always be polite to elderly people. Always say good morning. That's my grandmother speaking. Always, and be gentle. Education. Speak properly. I can tell you stories about that. I diverge a bit. My grandmother was too big. I think she's had a bit of Scots blood in her, so she might have been a house slave. I don't know. Because she came, and I remember when we had guests, she spoke very well, But when they weren't this patois, local language, and I remember calling me in because I was a very curious little boy, chatterbox. I still am a bit of a chatterbox, so you had to stop me. And I did everything. I was drawing from the time I was this age, and I did everything. And she used to call me to sing a song for Mrs. So and so, and I'm coming. Go and wash your feet. You can't come in here like that, And then come in and I say, no, bow. And announce what you're going to sing. And then you can sing. So you got an idea of the background and sort of family I came from, So all of that actually, it may not be so obvious in my work, but it's there. And that's what it is. That's all I have to say because it's part of my being, really. It's not that I'm not doing this for people saying, when they started hanging praises on me, I get a little embarrassed. No. No. That's why I made an announcement. This is your exhibition. You look at the work and you might like it, you might not, but ask me questions as well if you want to, and I'll be able to help you.
And I think John does very much deserve the praises because, alongside his own practices, painting and poetry, he made a huge, important contribution to the sort of regional and national art scenes. So this included establishing writing groups, doing hundreds of workshops with children and other people. In Manchester, he selected for exhibitions. He wrote exhibition reviews of other artists' work. He wrote about other artists' work.
Other artists, yes. They're up here now. I'm up there, I'm here.
Yeah, and also John was on many selection panels. He was on boards of important endeavours, like things like, the Near Centre in Manchester. You're on Axis. And John was also an external purchaser for the Arts Council collection, which places works by artists in collections across the UK. So he shaped sort of how our music, the works that our museums include. So yeah, John, you've played an amazing role. Do you want to talk a bit about Before Ash Wednesday?
Oh yes, Before Ash Wednesday.
So this work is the largest work in the show, and it's John's largest surviving piece as well. And it's one of my favourites because it's just completely beautiful, captivating, magnetic, and you can't help but be drawn into it. So one of the things to say about John's work as well is that the longer you spend looking at it, the more you see and the more you discover in it. And I know John talks about leaving clues for the viewer to kind of find their own meanings and discoveries within the work. So there's a number of key carnival characters in there. So John, do you want to point out who's in there?
This guy here, obviously, he calls a bit of a clown. It's something from Europe, basically, because, we, as I told you before, we are a sort of mixed and very rich culture, because we didn't just, and there's African, there's Indian, we've got a lot of people there, but also there are visual symbols in there and metaphors, right? I call them visual things and metaphors. Sometimes I don't know, but eventually, this is how I go back and look at it myself and discover it, because I don't necessarily, when I paint, I don't necessarily have it in my mind. I have some idea what I want to do, feelings, but I don't know anything. I might do a few odd sketches here. When I am confronted with a larger canvas myself, I actually don't really know where I'm going. I just let the brush do the work, you see, and because of that, when my gallerist who looks after me, he always laughed at me. I said to him, I said, listen, I have to leave that painting alone, because when I talked to him about it, I said, it stopped speaking to me, right? And I don't know what it wants me to do to it. It's like that type of relationship. So, and this where I just go on continue discovering and continue learning. You know what I mean? It's not this is what I want and this was our aim at and getting that. No. I sometimes come to look at my work, hey, what is that doing there? Did I put? No, I didn't. I see eyes appearing, and in some paintings you see fish in there, and you see all sorts of funny things, but they came intuitively, and with the use of the brush, and that happens with everything else, music as well, poetry. That's what, it's about the art, really, and creativity. So this year, really, that character is scary. He might be one of the guys who's terrified me, and I hid behind my mom's skirt because it's along with the music. And sometimes when I'm painting and there's carnivals, I can hear the music the music is there, you know what I mean? I'm moving the brush, but I can hear the music, I'm with it. And it's very vibrant, and you're moving to it, I'm doing that sometimes when I look at it, I stand off and I start, and I go back to it again. So you see, it's very much alive, really. So that's all I can just tell you how I feel and how I feel when I'm drawing it. I can't analyze it in the sense that this is why, that's what's there, that's what's not. That character up there, again, is the owl. You see, not quite, but it's building transformation right at the top. I didn't necessarily, it came from a move of brush and I said, oh, that looks interesting. That could be, so I put a little, you do with poetry as well. You don't hand it out on a plate in description. What's the point? You don't take a camera, well, it's good, it's a good art, because that's prose, you've got to write properly. You've got to do a good photography. More things, right? You want to see a visual image and it's correct. But when you're doing a painting, it's not quite the same thing, you know? So that's what I'm trying to say. So this painting is very important to me because it's the largest one I've done when I had larger studios. And I had to, I paint in smaller cases, space now, because even the space you work in becomes part of the painting. You know, it's part of it, because in fact you have to adopt. It's a creative thing, you have no limits. In creativity, or you have no limits. Because if you have a circumstance that actually might alter how you move, you go with it. You know what I'm trying to say? You go with it, and you work. So this is very intuitive, and it's about carnival, this guy here. And that I don't know what that character is doing, but it's a bit scary, isn't he? But, but sometimes, but also it's a balance of color and how colors work, because, you know, there's that part of the art training you have, you know, about color, you know, about how to make nuances of shades and so on. So if you have all that in you, you forget it. You don't think about it. Just paint, and it comes, you know. So that's all I have to say. But it's yours now. You might get something different. You know what I'm talking about. You might say, what is he talking about? I can't see that, what he's saying. You know, it's yours. And you can ask me questions. But I will be able to perhaps explain a lot more sometimes when people ask me direct questions. If I can't answer, I'll say, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. But, you know, I'll be able to tell you more.
So, John, okay. It's a bit like you're saying when you hear an author talk about their work and they say that the characters are telling their own story. And it's the same for you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely.
It's sort of literature, poetry especially, and painting. I find them, I can't make a separation at all. I think they're linked. You know, when I look at people who work like Chagall and a few others, I think, that's interesting. Yeah. And it's there, they've got, you could think of them intellectually. You've got a syntax. We had to do English grammar. You know, when I did the senior Cambridge exam, we got the English grammar, you got the English literature. So we had to analyze the whole paragraph, parse it, each word. Right, so that was vast training I had in Trinidad. But then it goes beyond that. You know, that's just the tools, that's what put it.
The
framework on which you actually, carry on working. And it's the process that matters, not the end product. The end product takes care of itself, you know, and you discover, and you invent, and people and everyone's like that anyway. I'm not special in any way. We all have it. We all have that sort of ability. Some people don't realize it, and some people don't. Some people are afraid of it, and some of you join other groups. You know what I mean? But we all have as human beings. This is why I say, have a look. It's yours. You can tell. You may like it. You may not like some things of it. But you tell me. I don't mind.
Hello, John. I'm so excited about your work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I just want to ask you a question because, like, things that gets us scared, that we are scared of. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't want to deal with them. Mm-hmm. We just want to run away.
Yeah.
Right. So now, what motivated you to start painting? Because, like, just like you said, you were so scared about the carnival, and when you see these things, you run and go and hide, stuff like that. So, but like, now you are expressing yourself through this art. Mm-hmm. So how were you able to put yourself together? What was your interest? How were you able to overcome that fear?
Yeah. Well, the first one was curiosity, right? And the second one was visceral. Because when my mum died at 9 and had to live with my grandmother in Tobago, we had lots of land. We had little rivers running through our land and all that. And I said, curious as I was as a child, I told you before, I would go off on my own. And I used to be scared even of what's around me. And I found it was alive, the forest was alive. it was alive in a sense I can't really properly explain to you. So it was, I had to face up to that. And we have to face up to things that, as we say, we got light, right? If you've got light and we got other things around, then we've got shadows. And without the light, there's darkness. So how do you define one from the other? You know what I'm trying to say? That might be that's how I reason it in my own head, because they both exist. And that's something that you should run away from, to face up to it creatively rather than anything else, because it's got a moral issue there. You know what I'm saying? So
was the forest alive as much in your imagination as you actually
it could be.
there?
Yes, as well as my body, because my body reacted to it. And I ran, I remember running all the way up home, and not stopping. Scared. I don't know what it was, but that's how I felt. But also, that comes into my work sometimes, and I don't know what. People say, oh, it's very dark, John. I said, okay, I don't know why it's there, but that's how it is. But look at it again, and you begin to discover other things in it that are not.
And actually, the third section of the exhibition is called Finding the Self in Folklore, and it kind of dives deeper into your sort of connection to the landscape in Tobago specifically.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if, just because thinking about moving quickly through all the beautiful work.
I talk too much.
Too interesting.
So, well, that's the thing. There's so many works to talk about and so much artistic experience.
Some funny ones as well.
So this is the second section of the exhibition, and it's called The Language of Painting. So in here, first we've dived straight into John's kind of most kind of theme that's been alive for the longest through his whole practice, I'd say. But here we kind of understand how he's got to his mature practice. So thinking about his colour scheme, his kind of painterly style, the way he thinks about the structure of painting, and how you can communicate visually. And so this looks at works that were created from 1964, which are the earliest works that survive of John, up until the 2000s, when he'd kind of really found his symbolism and style. So in Goldsmiths, when John arrived at Goldsmiths in 1959, it was a real kind of turning point for his art practice.
Absolutely.
So in Trinidad, John was very focused on the representational, so producing portraits, landscapes, looking at Trinidadian artists like Casaubon, for example, teaching himself in the Victorian Museum in Trinidad. And his work was kind of very academic in that sense. But upon arriving to London, at Goldsmiths, he was immersed in a different kind of art teaching, and sort of came into deeper contact, I suppose, with artists from European modernist canon, who became inspirational. So John began to see painting and drawing as a way to express an individual vision of the world rather than just what you see on the surface. So you can start to see in those works, which are sort of have those cubist influences, John is playing with form and line to kind of show his own slightly different vision. So yeah, you can see. I'll let you, John, talk a bit about how you developed over the years.
Because in fact, as Olivia was saying, I made it quite clear I was never taught art at school. Didn't have art lessons at my age at that time. But I remember I did only just recently. My sister from London came to announce the death of my other sister, the one after me, in Barbados. And we were all sort of, she was very, very ill, so it was almost like a relief, We were saying, very sad, but she's in a better place now. That's how we thought about it, right? And my younger sister, she said to me, when Daddy died, he died at 61, actually. I'm telling you this story because it is very important to me. He died at 61. I thought it was a bit older, but I was already here, catching him in, as we say in Trinidad, they find it very difficult. And she said, before he died, a couple of days before he died, he was talking a lot. He told her, he said, when John, they called me Rex at home, Rex, my name was Rex, and when, at home name, when he was about 3 years of age, and I was holding a pencil and I had a piece of paper, and I was making a drawing, my father said, what are you drawing there, Rex? What are you doing, Rex? He said, I'm drawing Daddy. And then I used to tell people, I've never been taught art, but I started very young. But then I say, now I know. It was 3 years old when I started. Like that. So basically my idea was that, and everybody pat you on the back and say, one guy said to me once when I was going to study art, he said, what have you got to do now? He said, well, I'm thinking of just still doing that nonsense. I had something in my hand, which is a bit of work. So, and you're going to study it somewhere? I said, yeah, yes. He said, why don't you go and study something important, like being a doctor or a lawyer? Why are you going to do art? What can you do with art? That was the attitude then, you see. But when I went to Goldsmiths College, I have to tell you the story because then you'll understand a lot more where I'm coming from in that respect. I had to draw, because I was very good at drawing, so give me anything and I can draw you exactly as it is, right? So I thought, when I got in, I thought, oh, I'm all right, an artist, I can do this. But there are a lot of people like me, right? And that will give me a pause to reflect. And then Mr. Manor, always remember Mr. Manor, he had Parkinson's, he's always trembling like this. And he wanted us in the first year, that same year, first year, to draw a chicken, mounted with all the bones and everything in place. And he wanted us, not to mess about with it, to draw it exactly as you see it. Oh, that's up my street. I was happy about that. But in the course of doing that, questions came into my mind. And my curiosity, native intelligence, told me something. It said, each little bone was designed by nature to fit into place, to have a function. And when you add it all up, it becomes a bird that can fly. And I said to myself, we make tables, we construct things around us. We're using our mind to do that. What mind has done this in nature to do this? And that was like a revelation. Wow, I said. It'd be very important to me. So at that moment, I know that art could go beyond just the horizontal, the plane of perception and recognition. You have to go on the deeper conception, go inside and find out. And where those two lines intersect, at that point, that's where we are. And I tell students this, and it's a big demonstration, they understand that. Somebody came to my studio recently, not long ago. Her father's a filmmaker, and she's a very talented young person. And she has a scholarship, and he came to my studio and he said, I want you to speak to my daughter because she wants to know about abstract art, and how to get there. And I gave her that, and I can see her little eyes lit up because her intelligence grasped that truth and knew about it. So I think, it's not like a style. It has to do with your perception and the way you look at the world around you. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm gone off again. I'm like teaching now. No.
No. Well, this is a good example, actually. These sculptures here, which are quite different to, the rest of John's work that you can see in the exhibition. They're called Sacrificial 1 and Sacrificial 2. So, although the earliest works that survive are from 1964, which is after John had already left Goldsmiths, because obviously, it was a long time ago, the late 50s, and kind of moving around between flats in London, it wasn't very easy to keep work. So in a way, these works kind of represent John's transformational thinking during his time at Goldsmiths and how that's kind of continued to resonate through his practice over the years. And what's very exciting actually is for the exhibition at the Whitworth, John wrote a new poem that speaks to these works. So as these are made of bones left over from John's dinner, and perhaps, you know, we can explain a bit more about that in a minute, but one of our conversations in the studio when John showed me these, we were kind of looking at them, and John was talking about how I think how we were going to display them. We talked about having them in a plinth that people could walk around and see them from different angles. And as you do that, your kind of perception of them changes. It's a bit like in this work from 1968, Marie-Louise, the model, you kind of see her from different angles as John's kind of moving around, painting different perspectives. So as you, as a viewer, move around these works, you see them from different angles and they kind of seem to have a conversation with one another. And so John's poem Mutability, which you spontaneously did, kind of portrays that.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, but of course, because I'm a cook, I'm the cook at home, so I'm always cooking, you know, as a result of cooking book, you know. So I clean my bones, you know, in Trinidad. In Trinidad, you don't just and throw it away. You go through every bit of it, you know. Right? And when it's soft enough, you bite into it even, you know. And you really enjoy it. But I don't do that now, but what I do, I clean them sometimes in different ways. And I love the shape of this. From my experience I had at Goldsmiths, you know, oh, that's wonderful. Look at that shape, you know. So I put it aside. I do that with a lot of things like that, you know. Even dried flowers, don't throw that away, I must have it because of the color. And I put it in the studio. And so in here, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I had I bought these glass things, domes put over them. But I didn't know, it's open spontaneous. Talking to Olivia and talking about what I was doing, all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute. People might be very curious about these. So I'm going to write a poem. I'm going to have them have a conversation between them. One of them is saying, we're only a poor pile of bones we left over somebody's dinner. What are you talking about? And the other one is saying, no, look at it. This is three-dimensional. Perhaps Picasso started at that point, you know, and so on. So the poems are here, and because you have to go around to read the poems and look at those, you're also going around and seeing it from different angles. And from every angle, it's a different sculpture. That is what interested me, you know. That's what life's for, isn't it? Discovery and adventure. Yeah, that's how I think about it. So and that's how that came about. And I have to thank Olivia to talk about it because we were talking about it. And as you talk, I begin to get ideas about how to do it and how to put it together. And that was almost at the last minute. I said, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll write a poem about a conversational poem between these two sculptures. And one is very aesthetic and intellectual, and the other one is, oh, no, come on. You know, that's not to do it. It's just a pile of bones, you know. And so that's what that's one about. And yeah.
So you can kind of see John developing his signature colour palette here. And you can sort of read in some of his artistic influences as well. Here he's looking at structures and planes, so how we can kind of draw things on the canvas that reveal a different perspective and say something about our inner mind as well and the psyche. So a lot of John's work from this era is looking at sort of the human psychology, basically. Yeah. So you can see this painting in the back corner is a good example of how John sees the kind of formal qualities of painting as a tool to say something beyond what you simply see on the page. So it's called culture structures. So you can see that John's composition kind of carefully lays out lines, shapes, blocks of colour and figures. And this kind of hints somewhat towards your political convictions,
yes,
John.
Yeah, because in fact, the culture I came from, of course, my great-grandmother, okay? And because she brought my mother up, because my maternal grandmother died young as well. My mother died when I was young. So my great-grandmother brought us up. And I had this thing once, when I started thinking, I said, well, if it's my great-grandma, of course she's mommy, she's a beautiful woman, very strong-minded and strong, you know? she was from Yoruba, from Nigeria, that part of the world. And I said to myself, wait a minute. Later on, I thought, if she's my great-grandmother and she's that old, her great-grandmother, I was only about young and thinking that my great-grandmother would have been, her great-grandmother would have been a slave or something. So I made that contact, personal, in a very personal way. And then, of course, I read about it and all the rest and got, some of it made me very upset, but also the other thing that happened to me was that to survive that situation, you had to be very strong. You had to be very strong, you see. So that there represents for me, I call it cultural structure, because it has influences of modernists' way of playing with the canvas. And then you've got the organic way of doing. And of course, it's the darker, the red bits will represent, for me personally, as I look at it afterwards, while I was doing it, I wasn't thinking it like that. It just came as the people who were actually laid out, in the holds of ships. So, but there was another one, but we haven't got here. This has to do with, it's more decorative one, saying the same thing. So it's about that. It's to honor that bit, and to me to face up to it. And that one there, the charcoal one, that is the really important one. It's to do with speech not being allowed, being commanded, free speech, because the VOX, or Latin for voice, the O represents the mouth or the figure on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, there's another stoppage of speech, allowing you not to speak the truth behind bars. So the two, and I was playing with those ideas. So we don't just, it wasn't sensually visceral in that way, but they moved away a little bit to more finding expression, a symbolic expression of what I was singing at the time. So that's where that came from.
So for John, painting becomes a language.
Yes, it's a language.
A language for the expression of ideas.
And feelings.
And feelings.
Yeah, lots of emotions.
Exactly. And very kind of, the meanings can be sort of multiple and various as well. So, for John, the idea is to put something out there and it doesn't have a solid reading necessarily. The meaning is kind of created by the interpretation of the viewer.
That's it.
And it can continue to change and add meaning as well.
That's what I want,
yeah.
You.
I'm just thinking, we've only got just a few minutes left of the tour, so I'll briefly touch on these ones and then let's go into the final room.
Yeah.
So here, by the 90s, John's kind of a confident painter, and John starts to bring in his own symbolic language based on his heritage and culture in Trinidad. So these beautiful works, this one particularly is one of the centerpieces of the show. It was bought by Huddersfield Art Gallery in 1990. So they were kind of, forward-thinking in seeing such an amazing artist. So another self-portrait, this kind of sums up the kind of risk and adventure in the act of painting and being an artist. So John's balancing, he's on one foot, he's got his paintbrush just teetering on the end of his finger. And John's
uncertainty.
John's alter ego, the Jab Jab, who is a sort of one of the masquerade characters from Trinidad Carnival. And John, often when they appear, they can sometimes be a cipher for you. So the Jab Jab is balancing on a tightrope and is also striding forwards but looking behind. So there's a degree of trust and kind of risk in that. And John's Jumbie bird is kind of swooping in and landing on his head, and we're not quite sure, is he going to lift him off to new heights? And John, as John kind of touched on before, the Jumbie bird is this liminal creature that can kind of move between the world of reality and the inner world of the mind, so can open up all sorts of creative inspiration and guidance for him. This is a a fantastic icon of the exhibition.
But at the same time, it's very, it's an irony as well. It's got humor, because it's not, it's sort of, the balance in the tightrope, of course, is a symbol for me, a metaphor, visual metaphor of what painting is about, what life's about. You know, that's what we do, don't we? And you've got to find your balance, you know? And, but there's a certain confidence in that one, because he's looking the way, not knowing where he's going. But also the other thing with the balance is a brush. It just comes to you. The paintbrush on the tip of my finger, you know, what does that tell you? It will fall, or is it going to fall? Or do I have the courage to do it? And I'm not straight. I'm, you know, diagonal, with a palette in my hand. So, and I'm looking straight at you. I'm asking you questions. You know what I mean? So those are the things that come in. But at this particular stage, you have a certain amount of confidence with your brush. You know, with your brush, you know. Sort of, and I sometimes, it's just paint. I have no idea. But at the same time, I'm trying to balance off and get a certain harmony between, you know, colors and things. And that's what happened. And of course, this is where the training comes in as well, actually. Use of color and so on. And I got that from Adrian Ryan, another painter, who was actually a big influence on me as well. He told me the nuance of colors and so on. He just loved Sickert. He used to talk about it. And also with the drawing, I have to tell you this because it's as well, the reason why one is able to express oneself like that in drawing, doing all those things, because the person who taught me life drawing, his name is Samuel Rabinovich. I know you might not know him or know him. He won bronze for wrestling in the Olympics. He was an opera singer. He was a sculptor. And he taught life drawing. And actually, how he taught it was you're sitting down, you're trying to draw the model, he would come and you look at it, and then he asks you to get up. And then he sits on where you're sitting, and then he take the pencil, he has hands like, you know, a pencil looks like a matchstick in his hand. He's a big guy, you know, from Russia, big guy. And he would start drawing, not on your work, but on the side of it. And as he draws, he speaks analytically. Why the balance? He talks about all sorts of things, and you're taking it in. And while he's drawing it, and I learned a lot from him. That's what the training came and helped me, because it was not just representation. Before I was just doing it like that, and it looked okay, but I didn't really go in a way, conceptually into it and analyze it. So I think we need both, really. We need to have both, and that's what that one's about. And yeah, that one over there caused a problems, actually, in a way, because at the Kettle's Yard gallery belonged to Cambridge University, we had an exhibition. There was myself, Paul Dash, and Errol Lloyd, and we had to choose work from the museum collection in Cambridge University, Fitzwilliam, and see if we can find work that relate to it, which is one of theirs, around the idea of carnival. Difficult subject for some people, but me, knowing that carnival came from Africa, and also knowing that the church had to deal with it, in a way, I said, right. So I did that. And what I chose was Graham Sutherland's Deposition. That's a big painting, you know. And I put them beside them. And one showed you before, where the humanity of somebody who's human, alive at the time, and screaming and saying, why am I here? Objecting, why am I on this cross, basically? That's what he was saying. But on the other one side, you had the Sutherland, where he was a lovely visceral bundle being taken down from the cross. And the contrast was astonishing. And a lot of people were really looking at that and thinking, oh. So this is why it's here, and I'm glad that you've got it here, and, you know, as well, you know, because I think that one That's another collection, isn't it? I think so. It might not have
Yes,
been.
I think
Or
it's
somebody
been
wanted
recently
it.
bought.
Yeah.
We should just
Yeah,
go
go through
to
that.
the final room, just because I don't want you to miss out on the final room before. I'm sure you've got other things to go to. And so in the Jumbie bird, the Trinidadian Jumbie bird sometimes appears in John's work as an English crow as well, a crow or a blackbird. So you can see in that work just there, you can see it popping up. So keep an eye out throughout the exhibition.
Yeah.
So this room is called Finding the Self in Folklore, and it's the final room of the show. So now we've kind of established John's artistic style and development journey in his painting practice, and this one kind of goes a bit deeper into the psyche, looking at some of the folk tales and mythologies that kind of surround Carnival and also permeate the culture in Trinidad. So John kind of uses these stories, which are often kind of hybrids between West African myths and European tales. For example, the vampire, the Sukuyon, in Trinidad. And John uses these characters to kind of examine some of our human sort of desires and failings as well. So it's a very kind of powerful, brooding room. And also the second part of this looks at the kind of grounding in nature that John touched on earlier, growing up as a young child in Tobago. So do you want to pick out a few?
Well, just this particular one here. That person is like a healer as well. Someone lying there in bed. But of course, getting the inspiration from, again, the reason why the owl is always, for me, from my way, it's not dark and black, it's always clear, is that it's doing it's another job that is more, how to put it, inspiring and helpful in that way. It's a wise owl. And that person in the mask is also a healer. That's how I see that. But I didn't think, it was only after, it's interesting because after I've done something and I look at it and I say, oh, what's that about? And I sort of find out myself, but it's just come intuitively, because of the stories you hear, your own life, your own fears and your own joys, So it's part of, and that is where it comes from, that's where the work from when you're an artist is like, that's why it's a being, not a doing.
So it's all in there.
It's all in there, and it's life, really. And that's what that's about.
Two important characters are the Sukuyon and Papa Bois. Yeah. So would you like to touch on Sukuyon and Papa Bois?
Sukuyon is like the vampire. That's a European conception, in a way. So this is, again, we're living on the earth, aren't we? And we've had people from different parts of the world in that part of the world. So obviously, not surprising. We take certain ideas and stories from one country to another, and it has to be like that, because that's how it works, And this is again, what can I say for these guys? That was a long time ago. This was a painting in its own right. But this was a long time ago part of in Manchester, show that I had a bit of an installation, but it's not here. But this stands on its own. And that installation piece was a cube of Tate and Lyle sugar bags that came up about this high, big, right? And it was on a velvet map of Trinidad, cut out green, and then beyond a board a bit. And what I was trying to say, that the different, these guys are part of slavery, really, basically. And here you got a representation of what was happening. It's a metaphor as well, And I think I'd like to have it we want to have it in the exhibition because it's very important for me to have it there. But it's something that I can't always fully get into and explain because it goes much deeper than,
And the Sukion is, she's a sort of old woman in the day who kind of shuffles around, but at night she takes off her skin.
Takes the skin and fly as a ball of fire.
Exactly, so she flies across the night sky as a ball of fire and sucks people's blood. So in a way, John is kind of equating that story there to the kind of reign of terror on the Caribbean caused by colonisation and slavery. So you can see that the fiery Sukion character occurs a lot in John's work.
And there's one line I just remember about this line of one of the poems I wrote. I said, Sukuya, Sukuya, where you there? I couldn't see you in the fire, but you're not burning. It was saying, it was the fire, And I always remember, it just came back to me now, when you're talking about that. But that's a very important one too. Yeah.
And another thing to say as well is in the exhibition we've got some of John's poems. So John is reading a selection of poems that kind of speak to the themes of this show, and you can find those on the audio station, and also on the walls as well. The poems that we've selected kind of give you a little more insight into the paintings in each room.
There's that one right over there, the scrapbook of spells. The Obe Woman scrapbook of spells.
Yeah, this is a good one to end on actually. Should we focus on this one? Yeah. And then I'm not sure what everyone's plan is, but I know me and John have got some more appointments, haven't we, that we need to do?
Yeah, we've got some more appointments. But the reason why I said focus on this one because it's almost monochromatic almost, isn't it? But there are nuances of colour shades and so on. But within that, actually, when I was painting that, things happened. This is how to put it. Epitome of the method, of intuitive method that I use. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. I just went and got involved with the paint. And it's the reason why I draw attention to this one, because when it was at the Cambridge Fitzwilliam, the museum, the gallery in Kettle's Yard, I saw people. Somebody wanted to take it off the wall. A friend of mine said, "Oh, that's the painting I want. If I could lift it off, I'll take it." But the next time I saw people coming to it and standing a long, long time. What touched me was an elderly couple. They were at it like this for a long, long time. And I couldn't resist it. I sort of went up to them and said, "Hello, you like that, sis?" I said, "Well, what do you think about it?" She said, "Every time I look at it, I'm seeing something else. Everything's there. You look away, and you look back. Oh, I haven't seen that before." You know what I mean? And I get surprised myself because when I have this little thing, I call it a moment of quietude. When I'm painting, and it's not speaking to me anymore, I go away, and I either cook or I go into my shower and shed and do some writing. And I don't think about it. And my thing reflects on other things, but not about on the painting. And when I come back, oh my gosh, I didn't see that bit. Oh gosh, and there's what's that there? And I started working again. And it's very enigmatic, it's very mysterious. I'm still looking at it and finding things, you know what I mean? So and that is a way, that painting has that power. So I walked up to them and I said, "You know what it's called? It's called the Obe Woman, which is a type of witch. She does good things, and if you want to do something to somebody who knows you, she can do that too, And I said, "This is the Obe Woman. It's what the pin is called, the Obe Woman Scrapbook of Spells." And I said, "Those two, look at, she's got you under her spell." I always remember that. It was quite funny, really. So that's something. But I hope that one day somebody will have that in the public collection because there's a lot of story in it, That's how it is. It's lovely. And I do like it because of its nuances and myself. I'm still discovering things when I look at it,
So, in a way, to kind of, as visitors have kind of taken in the whole show, this is a really beautiful one for them to keep spinning in their minds as they go on with their day. So we remember to check the catalogue as well for more more information about John's work. Also, the podcast. I think there's a link to somewhere in the show. That's where the Bloomberg Connect snippets have come from. But we've got a full-length podcast episode, so you can hear John talking more about his work in there as well. But yeah, I think we've gone over, so I feel we should probably
It's my fault.
wrap up here.
Talk too much. Okay. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. And remember what I say, this exhibition is yours now. Don't take it off the wall, though.